Hello everyone, Sunderek here. So in today's video I want to tell you why Yelan is going to be the next character that is a must-pull character. She is going to be basically the better version for Xingqiu, and in a lot of cases I believe that she is going to be a very meta character going into the new 3.0 meta with dendro added into the game. So with that said, a quick bit of announcement, not for the channel but for miHoYo's side. The 2.7 update time is finally out. Depending on where you are in the world, it will be either happening on the May 30th at 6 p.m. or if you're in China, it's going to be May 31st 6 p.m. and it's going to last for about 5 hours, which means worst comes worst, you will be able to play the new game on June the 1st. Also, if you like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. With that said, let's get started. So first of all, Yelan is going to be one of the rate-up characters in patch 2.7 alongside Ito and Xiao. My guess is that Yelan will be first half and Ito and Xiao will be second half, and the other 4-star Cookie Shinobu will be on Ito's banner. I'll make Cookie Shinobu's video tomorrow. So with that said, Yelan is going to be a sub DPS. C6 Yelan can play main DPS, but her main DPS is more of going to be of the Raiden style, whom you have a burst window of a little bit and then you swap afterwards. So starting with her main stats, at level 90, her base attack is going to be 244. This is actually another new record for a 5-star with the lowest base attack again. Her base attack is the same as Fischl's at level 90. However, because most of her damage is on her normal attack scales of her max HP, this is actually not a drawback, but this is just a stat she doesn't need. And of course, when I say the lowest record for 5-star base attack, Zhongli mains and Albedo mains will understand the joke. So talking about HP, at level 90, her base HP will be 14,450, which is going to be the 4th highest in the game after Hu Tao, Zhongli, and Jin. I don't know why Jin has such a high base HP because she doesn't use it, but given all of Yelan's scales off max HP, I believe this is probably as high as they can go for her base HP, because for Hu Tao's case, Hu Tao and Zhongli's case, it's partially scaling off max HP, so you still have to worry about attack, whereas in Yelan's case, you just go full HP, no need to build attack, just crit and HP. And of course, here's all the materials needed to get her to level 90. And these two pictures, the left one is all the materials needed to get her to talent 666, and the final one is all the materials needed to triple crown her. So with that said, let's move on to her skills. Her normal attack has pretty much nothing to talk about other than two things. It's basically the same as every other bow character, have a unique animation and the same plunge and same charge attack. So her first one is during her normal attack animation, there is a specific attack where she actually kicks the bow. I don't think I can show the footage here, but when you actually use her in character trial, you'll see what I mean. It's pretty cool, but sadly we'll never get to see that unless your Yelan is C6, in which case you will use her normal attack, but other than that, we probably won't get to see that animation normally in game. And the second one is, of course, her charge attack, like Gangyu's and Yoimiya's, comes with a special state, and this special state is called Breakthrough. Breakthrough is obtained after 5 seconds of her being off field, and it can also obtained by special ways after she unlocks her Constellation C6. Breakthrough replaces the original charge shot, so instead of firing off a single hydro arrow, she is going to fire off a different hydro arrow. It's going to be called a Breakthrough Barb. And the charge time for the Breakthrough Barb is going to be 80% reduced compared to the original charge attack time, so only 20% of the time needed to fully charge. And also this Breakthrough Barb will deal hydro AoE damage based on her max HP, as opposed to the normal charge attack, which deals just hydro damage based on her attack. Moving on to her E. Her E is very similar to Soyuz, but it has a much shorter duration. It can only last up to 3 seconds, but still exactly same as Soyuz. It has a tap mode and it has a hold mode. So for tap, same as Soyuz, she just dashes forward really quickly, and for hold, she is able to switch directions and rapidly move around for up to 3 seconds. As for particle generation, for tap, it's 70% generating 4 particles, 30% generating 3 particles, and for hold, it's 80% generating 4 particles and 20% generating 3 particles. And while she is dashing or holding, she is tapping or holding, so while she's moving in her E state, whatever mode it is, As long as she gets nearby an enemy, that enemy will be marked. And all of the marked enemies will have 1 instance of damage at the end after her E skill is released. So when they are released, they will deal, each enemy will deal AoE hydro damage based on themselves, and it again will be based on her max HP. And finally, for each opponent that was being dealt, and for each opponent that was marked, when they explode and deal AoE hydro damage, each opponent separately will grant Yelan a 34% chance to reset the breakthrough state. So it's calculate each one separately. It's not that after you stack 4 opponents you're guaranteed. It's each one calculated separately, like sort of Diona's, Kitty Claws, and Xingqiu's E under for the sacrificial sword and sacrificial bows passive. It's the same way of calculation. As for Q, I'm sure most of you know Yelan is called basically the big Xingqiu, so her Q is basically Xingqiu's Q but better in some sense. So essentially the same one as Xingqiu. Xingqiu summons in water swords that does coordinated attack. Yelan summons a small dice that follows you around that does coordinated attack. The size of the dice is about Klee's sparks. It's a bit hard to spot sometimes if there's numbers everywhere, but I'm sure the coordinated attack will be very easy to spot. The coordinated attack can happen under 2 instances. The first one is same as Xingqiu, every second normal attack can trigger it. It's already been confirmed that Raiden's Q state will be able to trigger this as well. So Yelan and Raiden is a workable combo. And the second one is every single time Yelan's E explodes, it will also trigger an attack and will disregard the cooldown from the every second normal attack. And finally, these attacks deal hydro damage based on her HP, based on her max HP. And finally, there's one more thing that increases the damage of her Q, increases the usefulness of her Q, and this is why essentially she is better than Xingqiu. For her second passive talent, while her Q is active, increase active character's damage by 1%. This further increases by 3.5% every second, and the max damage increase can go up to 50%. Given the 15-second duration of her Q, this can basically get full stacked. However, the main drawback of her Q is her 18 seconds cooldown that she has to go through after that. So basically, instead of healing like Xingqiu, Yelan is more focused on damage buff. It's similar in the case that Yelan is a mix between Mona and Xingqiu in the case that she took the damage buff part from Mona, but it's more applied to damage in general, and she also took the Q part from Xingqiu and sort of merged it together. So for Yelan's other useful passive, when the party has 1, 2, 3, 4 elemental types, Yelan's max HP is increased by 6%, 12%, 18%, 30%, respectively. And also this is basically telling us that Yelan is going to try to force the 4 element teams. Currently, I think she slots very well into teams that have Xingqiu in them, so specifically looking at Raiden International and also the Hu Tao Shangli Xingqiu combo. Both of those I believe are 3 element teams, although Hu Tao Shangli Xingqiu, the first one's a free slot, so if you really want you can swap in a 4th different character. But I think with the introduction of Dendro, it is going to be easier to fit her into a 4 element team, and by then I think she'll have her full build. I think so far she, since she is a transition character transitioning between the 2.something meta into the 3.0 meta, I believe she's going to have very different teams in the Abyss from now up until 3.0, 3.1 when Dendro starts entering the game. And of course for her useless passive, it's the same as Shenhe's, 25% more stuff when doing Liyue expeditions. Moving on to her constellations, her C1 increases an extra charge of E, so basically a free sack bow on her, but guaranteed to pop. It is very good for her energy recharge since she needs a lot of energy for her Q, so that's a good energy recharge situation to use. Her C2 Q's coordinated attack also comes with an additional hydro arrow every 1.8 seconds, dealing 14% of her max HP as damage. It is basically a nice damage boost on top. And finally, for her C3 and C5, it's the same, so I won't go over. C4, for every enemy marked with the E, when the E explodes, increase all party members' HP by 40% for 25 seconds. Max increase is 40%. This is a nice overall damage boost for her, but unless you're running, again, the Hu Tao Xingqiu now Yelan combo. I don't think the other characters will benefit much from HP increase, but that is only so far. Again, we don't know what's coming with the dendro characters. I believe, given that miHoYo has been designing more and more characters that scales off defense and HP, I think it's possible that in the future that there will be a dendro character that scales off HP that is potentially a DPS, and then that character can probably make usage of this Yelan C4 passive. And finally for Q, which is the one that turns her into a burst DPS for a bit, after entering Q state, Yelan enters the Mastermind state. So the Mastermind state are stated as follows: all normal attacks are now being replaced by breakthrough arrows. All normal attacks are going to be considered charge attacks, and they basically leave the Mastermind state will be cancelled either after 5 shots of breakthrough arrows or after 20 seconds. Given that her Q's duration is 15 seconds, I think there's 2 ways to play this. Either you Q and immediately use the 5 arrows and then swap to a second character for more damage from her Q, or you use Q and then immediately swap for more damage and then come back later on to use the 5 arrows. The main problem is that these 5 arrows are considered charge attacks, so she won't be able to have her coordinated attack go off while firing these 5 arrows. So I think unless for cycle reasons you need to use these 5 arrows first before swapping out, I think it's better to swap onto someone else to get the full 15 seconds duration of the Q first, and then swap back to her to get the 5 shots afterwards first. Also, we still need to confirm whether this state cancels after she leaves the field or not. And finally, for her weapons, of course her signature weapon is going to be the best. It's another weapon that has a crit damage substats, and she herself increases with crit rate, so it's another perfect pair. And the weapon has a very low 542 base attack for a 5-star weapon, that is, but again, Yelan doesn't care about attack at all. So the upside is that she got a whopping 88.2% crit rate just from that damage, just from that weapon. I think the weapon's current name in place is Aqua Simulacra, but it might swap to a different name once the weapon actually gets released. I think at one point it was called the Kirin Bow. That was, I think, all the way back in beta. And of course, the passive for her weapon, every single passive of that weapon works for her. The first one is to increase HP by 16% at all times. The second one is when opponents hereby increase damage of the bow's wielder by 20%. This can be triggered off-field. So essentially, as long as you're not sniping enemies from far away, you can enjoy this passive with 100% uptime. And finally, of course, I think it's reasonable that not everyone wants to weigh over her weapon. So if you do not want to get her weapon, here are some of the passives you should consider. However, do know that she does not have a lot of choices, because a lot of the weapons have sort of an attack buff somewhere. But since she scales everything off max HP, other than her normal attack, I don't think you need that attack buff. So a lot of times, weapons are either wasted on her because another main DPS can use it and get much better results, or a lot of times you have to look for weapons that doesn't involve having an attack increase, which is very rare. So 5 stars, of course, Sundering Pulse and Elegy for the End that both work. Sundering Pulse is the crit damage one, and Elegy for the End is the energy recharge one. The main reason to go for energy recharge as her second stat, if we're not going for HP, because no 4 or 5-star weapons have HP increase, is because if we stack her energy recharge high enough, we can probably cycle her Q faster. However, both Sundering Pulse and Elegy for the End have an attack increase somewhere here and there, so that's getting wasted if you use it on her. For 4 stars, the best one I would actually recommend is Favonius Warbow. The main reason is because it grants you extra particles when you land crit hits, and then she is someone you definitely want to build a bit of crit on, so it's very nice. Plus on top, the substats is energy recharge, which again allows her to cycle, but I think it might go overkill at some point. We don't know the exact numbers yet, of course. Those will have to be worked out after she is released. As for the other one I would recommend is of course Sacrificial Bow. It's basically a free C1, but it pops only sometimes. So with that said, if you're high refinement Sacrificial Bow, it's probably better than a Favonius Warbow, but otherwise I would definitely recommend Favonius Warbow. And finally, the third weapon that can work with her is Blackcliff Warbow, because it's the crit damage substats, but again the passive increases attack after killing an enemy, so it will not work on her. The passive was basically wasted. But I mean, already for Blackcliff it's said that the passive cannot trigger very timely, so that's already something that people use Blackcliff are aware of, so I don't think it's too much of a build around. And finally, for 3 stars, the only one I recommend is Recurve Bow, and simply just for the HP. As for artifacts, there are currently no artifacts specifically for her. I think they're going to make one specifically for her 1 to 2 patches later, so I wouldn't recommend going all out farming the perfect artifact sets for her. Since she scales off HP, a lot of artifacts work for her. Personally for me, I just did 2-piece and 2-piece. I don't remember exactly what I have currently put in place, farmed for her already. It's on Goro right now. But I would generally recommend any of these 4 sets. Put them in either 2-piece bonus or 4-piece bonus. So the first one, of course, is the Milanus set, Zhangli set. Basically the 2-piece is HP increase, the 4-piece is buffing the entire team, so she can definitely use this set. However, I would only recommend the 2-piece. The second one is of course Heart of Depths, the Hydro set. I would still only recommend the 2-piece since the 4-piece doesn't really work with her. Noblesse Oblige is nice since her main source of damage is coming from Q, and again, like Milanus, if you need a team buffer, you can put 4-piece on her. And the final piece I would actually recommend is Emblem of Severed Fate. The main reason is because if you need energy recharge on her, it's good, and if you have overstacked energy recharge on her, the 4-piece will be able to turn those overly stacked energy recharge into a bit of damage. As for teams, like I've said already a lot here, Yelan is going to have probably a completely different set of teams in the Spiral Abyss once the dendro settles into the meta. But as for right now, the 2 best teams I can see her slotting in is of course Raiden National swapping out Xingqiu, or the Hu Tao Zhangli Xingqiu trio swapping out Xingqiu again. As for the Mona side of things, since Mona's normally playing in a nuke comp, specifically Morgana, I think she is going to work, but I don't think she is going to be the best character there, especially if your Morgana is Ganyu with the main DPS, then I highly don't recommend, because charge attack doesn't work with her in terms of her Q. But if you're playing a version of Morgana where you have 1 Hydro, 1 Cryo, and then a crowd control character, but Ayaka is your main DPS, it's the team I normally use. Personally, I use Ayaka Kokomi because I don't have Mona, Venti for crowd control, and then Ganyu for more damage on top. In that case, I would more than happy to swap in Yelan in case of Kokomi for more damage, and I'll just swap out Ganyu for Diona to cover the shielding and healing part, because Kokomi is overheal for me all the time in the Spiral Abyss. So with that said, I think that's all the teams we can figure out for her currently, because still no idea what dendro characters are there and what skills they have, so any talk we have right now is going to be nonsense once the dendro characters come out. And finally, I know the question that everyone's going to be asking, Yelan or Kazuha, and here's my personal assumption, but of course it goes down to it's up to you on what you need, but I think I can offer some thoughts on depending on what situation you're in. You might find one favored over the other. That's what I'm trying to get here. So basically, Kazuha is going to be falling out of the Spiral Abyss very soon. He has to be. He has been top of the meta for way too long, so if miHoYo wants to sell new characters once dendro comes out, he's gotta go, and I think it's very easy to do that. They can either as we've already seen with the leaked dendro anemo reactions, which is none. I think once dendro becomes meta, Kazuha will be out, because at that point he can not even swirl dendro to provide the buff needed. And on top, all the enemies in Sumeru can be designed to work against Kazuha specifically, and that way he will be able to they will be able to push him out of the Spiral Abyss very easily. The second point I do want to mention is again the dendro reaction. It looks like it's currently trying to buff the two weaker elements, which is Hydro and the Electro at the moment. Because Hydro, from all the characters, it's either OP sub DPS like Shinchu, or nuker like Mona. All the main DPS, Child, Ayaka, and Ayaka are non-meta at the moment. I mean, there are good comps for Child, but it's mostly base price. And there are good comps. There's one good comp for Ayaka at the moment. So dendro is trying to buff these two, Crowd and of course Electro. The only good comp right now is the Raiden National, with a few other variations with Raiden in them. And it's trying to nerf two of the better teams right now, which is Cryo and Anemo, because Permafreeze with Cryo has been way too OP recently. And Anemo wise, Anemo's just too good of a support element in general. So with that said, if you don't really care about the Abyss, then I think Kazuha is definitely a better unit. His build is way more flexible, he slots into more teams. He's basically someone like in between Venti and Sucrose, but having bit more than 50% on both sides. However, if you do care about DPS, you want a strong sub DPS for future Abyss patches, basically for the next year or so, when dendro is going to be shining as the main character of the show. And if you already have Anemo characters like Venti and Sucrose build, and on top, if you're trying to split Shinchu into two parts to fit into both of your teams in the Spiral Abyss, then I would definitely recommend Yelan. So I think ultimately the choice is that whether you want to play in the Spiral Abyss or not, because Kazuha is probably going to be leaving the Spiral Abyss very soon. His rerun is going to be in 2.8, so very likely, because if they're going to kill him off from Spiral Abyss, it's best that they make him rerun right before that. So I think with that said, if you want more for the Spiral Abyss, you should pick Yelan, whereas if you want more for an overworld experience, Kazuha is definitely a more fun character to play with from all of his interactions. So with that said, that's all I have for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a nice day.